studios of WDBO in sunny Orlando, Florida, here's talk radio host Joe Kelly's Behind the News podcast, where Joe and his listeners and guests discuss the most important issues of the day, plus the crazy and bizarre stories of the infamous Florida man. Here's Joe Kelly.
Well, welcome to Monday night. We got a lot to unpack tonight. We're going to get audio of Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary. Did you know that Pete Buttigieg over the weekend blames discrimination for traffic crashes? It's because of discrimination that we have traffic crashes. So we'll get into that coming up in a few minutes. Also, there is a new DeSantis Super PAC ad that is out right now. So it's really kind of the first of the DeSantis for President commercials. We'll have that coming up in just a couple of minutes. And somebody rushed the stage during a DeSantis event. Some protesters did in New Hampshire. I've got audio of that coming up for you in a few minutes as well. But we're going to start tonight with some discussions about guns and the use of guns and some shootings that I think are dubious in using the stand your ground law. One of which you just heard in our newscast there at 6 o'clock. A black teenage boy shot in the head in Kansas City, Missouri, after he accidentally went to the wrong house to pick up his little brothers. You see, his mom asked the 16-year-old Ralph Yarl to go pick up his young twin brothers at 115th Terrace Avenue, but he accidentally went to 115th Street. He rang the doorbell just before 10 p.m. to pick up his twins. He was at the wrong house. And an 80-something-year-old white man who lives at the house, shot him through the door, as if it is illegal to ring someone's doorbell. He shot him through the door. Is actually through. Evidently, there was a window in his door, so there's glass in the door. Saw him standing there and shot him in the head, no less. The 16-year-old boy falls to the ground. The 80-year-old white man opens up the door. And as the 16-year-old is laying on the ground with a bullet in his head, the 80-year-old shoots him in the head again. Now, one could potentially argue that the first shot was in self-defense. I wouldn't argue that. I would argue that the white man panicked, was unaccustomed to seeing a young black man at his door, panicked and shot him. That's what I would argue. Some, though, might argue that the first shot was in self-defense. I find that hard to believe. But anyhow, the second shot, in no uncertain terms, there's no way the second shot is justifiable. The second shot is attempted murder. The kid remarkably did not die. Well, he has not died. He is in the hospital now with life-threatening injuries in stable condition. So the local authorities picked up the 80-year-old white man and they put him in custody on a 24-hour hold. But in discussions with the district attorney, they realized that they didn't have enough evidence, at least at that point, to charge him with anything. So they let the white guy, the homeowner, go back to his house. The 16-year-old, meanwhile, is in the hospital with 2 bullets in his head. I can only hope that the investigators will come up with enough evidence to charge the homeowner. That is an unjustifiable homicide attempt. That is an unjustifiable shooting. It is not against the law to ring a doorbell, even if it's almost 10 o'clock at night. It's not. Take the doorbell off, you big coward, if you're too afraid to answer the door when someone rings your doorbell. But shooting that kid a second time in the head as he lays on the ground, that's no longer self-defense, that's punishment. First shot could be self-defense. Second shot is punishment. What do you think? 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can hit me up in the open mic on the WDBO app. Of course, there's a lot we still don't know about this, so we do have mostly preliminary information that we're going on this. Coming up in a moment, we're going to hear from the chief of police there. I always get a kick when my family starts text messaging me during stories, and several of my family members are like, oh my gosh, that guy needs to go to jail. The 80-year-old needs to go to jail. Yeah, I would agree with that. He needs to go to jail. He needs to at least be criminally charged. And I hope that the DA and the police are able to come up with enough evidence. Here's the chief of police for Kansas City, Missouri, as she clearly is being mindful of the racial component of this shooting. And she's clearly being mindful of outrage in the community and protests. There have already been protests at the old man's house. But take a listen. This is Chief Graves with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department.
On April 13th, just before 10 o'clock p.m., officers were called to a residence where a teen was shot in front of the residence by a homeowner. The teen was transported to a local hospital for his injuries. The homeowner was taken into custody and placed on a 24-hour investigative hold. Detectives and crime scene personnel immediately responded, processed the scene, and recovered the firearm. After consulting with the Clay County Prosecutor's Office, the homeowner was released pending further investigation due to the need to obtain a formal statement from the victim, forensic evidence, and compile additional information for a case file to be presented. A formal statement is planned and forthcoming as a teen's injuries allow. A person can be held up for 24 hours for investigation of a felony, at which time they're required by Missouri law to be charged or released. The vast majority of cases, to include violent crime, involve the suspect being released pending further investigation. In this case, the prosecutor requires more information from investigators that would take more than 24 hours to compile. Throughout the weekend, investigators have worked to gather requested information and details. They have been in touch with the prosecutors. As soon as a case is complete, it will be presented to the Clay County prosecutors for their review. We recognize the frustration this can cause in the entire criminal justice process. The women and men of the Kansas City Police Department are working as expeditiously and as thoroughly as we can to ensure the criminal justice process continues to advance as quickly as all involved and our community deserve. Detectives have been working over the past several days to compile a detailed case file so they have all the information they need to make the best charting decision on the case moving forward. We want the community to know that we are committed to justice in this case and every case, and work every day to seek that justice for all victims of all crimes. Investigators have been in touch with the family of the victim in this case and updated them on the status of the investigation and the process moving forward. I want everyone to know that I'm listening, and I understand the concern that we are receiving from the community.
There you go. The chief of police she's pretty much articulating, don't riot. She spent 2 minutes basically saying, please don't riot tonight. Don't go out and riot. Give us time to see if we can file charges against the 80-something-year-old who shot the 16-year-old in the head. Coming up next, you're going to be able to hear Pete Buttigieg blame traffic crashes on racial discrimination. That'll be coming up next. Plus, another dubious shooting, this one happening here in Florida, in Orlando even, as a man is claiming self-defense after shooting his girlfriend in the back. Oh, that's very problematic. We'll get to that coming up next. 844-580-WDBO or hit me up in the open mic in the WDBO app. So Pete Buttigieg, the Biden transportation secretary, was on MSNBC on, I believe it was Sunday. He was on the Al Sharpton show. And I think even Al Sharpton had a hard time buying this one. But Pete Buttigieg says that discrimination is what causes traffic crashes.
We've got a crisis when it comes to roadway fatalities in America. We lose about 40,000 people every year. It's a level that's comparable to gun violence. And we see a lot of racial disparities. Black and brown Americans, tribal citizens, and rural residents much more likely to lose their lives, whether it's in a car or as a pedestrian being hit by a car. There are a lot of reasons related to discrimination, related to even the ways that roads are designed and built. Who has access to a safe street design that's got crosswalks and good lighting? Who doesn't have that access? That can drive disparities, and we have a responsibility to act on that.
Pete Buttigieg, Transportation Secretary of the Biden administration, blaming racial discrimination on the bulk of traffic crashes. My name is Joe Kelly. You can join me now at 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic in the WDBO app. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about a 16-year-old black kid killed by an 80-something-year-old white man. The 16-year-old rang the doorbell at the white man's house at night mistakenly. Went to the wrong house. His mother asked him to go pick up his younger twin brothers, and he put in the wrong address, went to the wrong house, and rang the doorbell. The homeowner shoots him through the door, through the glass window in the door, and then once the 16-year-old falls backwards and falls down to the ground, the homeowner opens up the door and shoots him again at point-blank range in the head. And the police are trying to decide whether or not to charge him. I hope they come up with the evidence, and I hope the DA is not a Soros-backed DA, and I hope they charge that guy with the attempted murder that it is.
You're kind of wrong on that first justification. Maybe self-defense for shooting that kid.
Oh, I would agree with you on that. I would accept that some people might argue that. I don't accept that the first shot was justified. I just don't.
When he rang the doorbell, but I'm pretty sure in most states, there has to be a threat of danger or bodily harm to justify any self-defense.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Ringing a doorbell doesn't meet the criteria for any element of danger.
Yeah, totally, absolutely, 100% agree with you.
You know, Joe, it's interesting how you turned a tragedy into a white-black shooting situation. If you worked for me on WDBO, I'd fire your ass.
Oh, no. Oh, now who's the snowflake? Did I hurt your feelings? Oh, my gosh, I'm so sorry for hurting your feelings about that. Oh, it's got to be terrible to listen to the radio and hear someone espouse an opinion that doesn't agree with yours 100%. That's terrible. Why would you want to listen to someone who might have a different perspective on something than you do? Oh, and don't think that I invented racism with regards to this particular shooting. I didn't even mention that Black Lives Matter has been out in front of this old white guy's house protesting for like the last 3 days now. I'm not the first person to bring up race in this issue. And if you think that I am, then I feel sorry for you. You're disconnected. And I will try really hard to only state opinions moving forward that you will find agreeable, because I don't want the snowflakes like yourself getting upset. I'm really sorry about that.
Hey, Joe, if you don't know the circumstances, he may have been robbed several times.
Well, but even if he was robbed several times, that doesn't give him justification for shooting a 16-year-old through the door that knocks on his door, that rings his doorbell. There's no justification for that. Even if he has been robbed several times, you don't get to go shoot someone else just because you've been robbed a couple times.
I can see shooting through the door. The second shot, if you listen to our sheriffs down here in Florida, especially Grady Judd, they say when you shoot somebody, keep shooting until you think they're dead.
Yeah.
Or you know they're dead. So that way you don't get jammed up and sued and everything else. It's a crazy country, but it's the way it is.
Yeah, but you will get sued. I mean, even if this homeowner is not criminally charged, I would be willing to bet you that Benjamin Crump is going to take him to court and sue him for everything he's worth. Now, here's another bad shooting. This one out of Orlando. A man is arrested Sunday afternoon in the shooting death of his girlfriend. Deputies say 48-year-old Richard Raciak shot and killed his girlfriend of 8 years, Allison Sheehan. She was 46, he's 48. It happened around 1 a.m. The dude claimed it was self-defense when he shot her while her back was to him. He has been arrested on a first-degree murder charge with a firearm. According to the affidavit, the dude sent text messages reading, quote, "I had to put her down. Self-defense, only choice I had, waiting on the cops." I'm sorry, but it's this. You can't shoot someone in the back and claim self-defense. You can't do it. Same with cops. Cops shoot someone in the back. You can't claim self-defense. Shooting someone in the back is almost never justifiable. Very rare circumstances where you're allowed to shoot somebody in the back. And this guy shot her in the back multiple times, saying it's the only choice he had. Nope, not. If her back is facing you, then there is no threat. She is not posing a threat to you. If a 16-year-old kid is standing at the front door ringing your doorbell, he does not pose a threat to you. Now, if he starts banging on the door and trying to break it down, if he starts trying to kick in the door, we've got a different situation. But if he's simply ringing the doorbell, he doesn't deserve to be killed. And the homeowner shouldn't get off scot-free for shooting him. What a coward the homeowner is to shoot through the door because he was frightened at a young black man who was ringing his doorbell at night. The young black man, by the way, the 16-year-old, was a leader in the school's marching band, one of the top bass clarinet players in Missouri, a member of the Science Olympia Team and Technology Student Association, and the Metropolitan Youth Orchestra. He plans on attending Texas A&M University to major in chemical engineering. He is a bright young kid with 2 bullets in his head because some jumpy, panicky, cowardly homeowner shot him through the door. 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic in the WDBO app. Well, I'm excited to tell you that coming up on May 1st, we're going to add another hour to this show. Starting May 1st, 2 hours of this show. I know that the guy that wants to fire my ass won't be happy to hear that, but it is what it is. So May 1st, mark it on your calendars. My name is Joe Kelly. You can join me at 844-580-WDBO, or you can leave me an open mic in the WDBO app.
You know, if the boy was trying to get in forcefully, then you might have some justification.
Yeah.
But just to shoot the kid through the door,
yeah.
I mean, come on now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Shooting him through the door, that was just a cowardly act of a cowardly homeowner. That was callously shooting through his door and then callously put a bullet in his head after he was already incapacitated and down on the ground. All right, I want you guys to hear this Ron DeSantis Super PAC ad. This is really going to be the first of the Ron DeSantis for President commercials. It's a 30-second commercial. It's from a Super PAC, so it is not orchestrated by the DeSantis campaign. And technically, the Super PACs are not supposed to have any kind of dialogue with the candidate, with the campaign when it comes to creating these ads. They are supposed to be completely hands-off on stuff like that. But this is a pro-Ron DeSantis for president ad, perhaps the first one that exists. And he targets not just Democrats, but also Donald Trump. Take a listen.
Donald Trump is being attacked by a Democrat prosecutor in New York. So why is he spending millions attacking the Republican governor of Florida? Trump's stealing pages from the Biden-Pelosi playbook, repeating lies about Social Security. Here's the truth from Governor Ron DeSantis.
We're not going to mess with Social Security as Republicans.
What did Trump say?
Entitlements ever be on your plate?
At some point they will be. We will take a look at that.
Trump should fight Democrats, not lie about Governor DeSantis. What happened to Donald Trump? Never Back Down Inc. is responsible for the contents of this ad.
Interesting that ad is. I always wondered how DeSantis was going to handle Donald Trump. How do you handle a guy that is loves to fight, loves to roll around in the mud, loves to call names? I mean, how exactly do you do that? How do you stay above the fray? How do you not get mud on you when you're wrestling with pigs? I mean, it's tough. And that is interesting as to how he targeted Trump, or how at least the DeSantis Super PAC targeted Trump in that ad. Now, meanwhile, in New Hampshire, as DeSantis has been touring the nation, it's not a coincidence that he was in New Hampshire giving a speech as part of his book tour, as New Hampshire is one of those important states, the early primary states. But he had some members of some group called If Not Now, that rushed the stage during his speech. They literally came onto the stage. Whatever security Governor DeSantis has, which he certainly won't have Secret Service protection at this point because he hasn't even announced his candidacy, so he doesn't qualify for Secret Service protection. But anywhere that the governor goes, he should have state troopers with him protecting him, a protection detail. Anywhere that the governor or any other governor goes, they usually have state police that protect them. I feel like the state police did a lousy job in this particular case because these protesters got right on stage with Governor Ron DeSantis in New Hampshire.
12, 14, 16, 18, yeah, thank you. You got to have a little spice in the speech.
Now, they're chanting Jews against DeSantis. That's what they're saying.
Right? I mean, you got to have a little fun.
Jews against DeSantis, and that is the group If Not Now. And they rushed the stage, got right up, shoulder to shoulder with Ron DeSantis. And eventually, I don't know if it was security guards or campaign volunteers or somebody, but they ushered those women out of the venue as they were causing a major disruption there. So there's a freshman lawmaker from North Carolina. His name is Jeff Jackson, Representative Jeff Jackson. And Jeff Jackson posted on his social media a 2-minute commentary, if you will. It's a 2-minute kind of pulling back the curtain, kind of like the great and mighty Oz. But Jeff Jackson pulls back the curtain on what really happens in Congress. And I think this is very telling. I would love to have more lawmakers as open as this guy. Take a listen.
I'm still brand new to Congress. I've only been there 100 days. And I don't know if I'm not supposed to say this out loud, but it's true and important, and if you don't know this, you need to. It's really clear from working there for just a few months that most of the really angry voices in Congress are totally faking it. These people who have built their brands around being perpetually outraged, it's an act. I've seen a bunch of examples. Here's one. I've been in committee meetings that are open to the press and committee meetings that are closed. The same people who act like maniacs during the open meetings are suddenly calm and rational during the closed ones. Why? Because there aren't any cameras in the closed meetings, so their incentives are different. What I've seen is that members of Congress are surrounded by negative incentives. There are rewards for bad behavior. You know what the big one is? Being able to reach you. The big thing that modern media and modern politicians have learned is that if they can keep you angry, they'll hold your attention. And they both want your attention. So if you're a politician and you show certain media outlets that you can help them keep their audience angry, they'll give you their audience. And because so many politicians are willing to play that game, now they're in competition with each other to see how fake angry they can be. So that's real bad. But here's something good. What I love about this, about communicating with you directly, is that the incentives are different. They can be positive. They can be about speaking to you with respect and real information and in a normal tone of voice. Because if I can talk to you directly, I don't have to yell. And if you don't have to yell to be heard, the whole conversation changes. So going forward, when you hear some enraged member of Congress say something absurd, your first question shouldn't be, how can they possibly believe that? It should be, do we think they actually do? Because they probably don't. And for those who want to see politics look less like WWE, I will keep you posted.
That is Congressman Jeff Jackson from Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. And what a great message. What a great, calm, rational message. That's the kind of dialogue that I like. I don't like the yelling and screaming, which is why I don't watch cable news channels. Because I don't need that yelling and screaming in my life, because I know that most of them are a big bunch of phony balonies. I don't have an alliance with any political party. I'm a registered Republican, but I don't put any greater trust or value in Republicans than I do in Democrats. I not in the people. I believe in the ideology of conservatism. I support the ideology of conservatism, but there's just not a single lawmaker that I would wholeheartedly endorse, because they're all men. They're all humans. Not men necessarily by gender, but they're mankind. And with mankind, they are broken and corruptible, and many of them are already corrupt. So I appreciate his style and delivery on that. Coming up next, first of all, this is going to have a big impact on me. I don't know what to think about this, but would you believe, some of you guys might be old enough to remember, there was a time in which Coca-Cola tampered with their original Coke, right? And they came out with this new Coke, and then everybody was like, what have you done to the old Coke? And it was a big fiasco for Coca-Cola. Well, McDonald's might be on the brink of a new Coke fiasco. I'll have that for you. And Budweiser trying so hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube, if you will, after their fiasco with the trans TikTok star Dylan Mulvaney. Hang on, we'll have both for you coming up next right here on WDBO. All right, so Coca-Cola made the mistake back in the 1980s to try to redo their original formula for Coke, and they introduced this new Coke, and it was a big disaster, and now, I don't know, maybe you can find a can of new Coke on eBay or something like that, but otherwise they don't exist, and they switched it back to the original Coke. There's been a whole lot of conspiracy theories that they did that on purpose to try to re-energize people about original Coke, blah, 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 blah. So McDonald's is going to revamp their menu. And they're going to remake the Big Mac. Now, can I tell you, I've got a few guilty pleasures, but one of my guilty pleasures is the Big Mac. Arushi's on the board tonight. Arushi Gupta. When was the last time you had a Big Mac from McDonald's?
So, as you know, I'm vegetarian. It's a great question for me.
So it's been a long time.
2 years, 3 years.
How long have you been a vegetarian?
2 years.
Okay, so the last thing you ate before turning vegetarian was a Big Mac?
Oh, I purged. I had steak. I had chicken.
You binged.
Yes.
Not purged.
Yes, whatever the word is.
Yes.
I did it all.
Yes.
And then I went cold turkey.
That's funny. I had a friend of mine that was a heroin addict, and I kid you not, they put him in a 30-day rehab, and his doctor said, go ahead and go crazy the night before, just don't kill yourself. And that's exactly what he did. He went crazy the night before, didn't kill himself, and he's been clean ever since, and I'm glad about that. But they're going to redo. This is a little embarrassing to admit, but I had 2 Big Macs just this past weekend, just the weekend that ended yesterday. I had 2 Big Macs.
Aren't they heavy?
They're very heavy in salt. They're very heavy in fat. They're very heavy in calories. They're very heavy in weight. I have that and a large fry. And usually, if I hit the drive-thru, I'll have a Coke. If I know I'm going home, I don't get a soft drink. I never drink soft drinks at home. But McDonald's now has announced that they're going to revamp the Big Mac. And they've gone through all this so-called research and development, bringing new changes to all of their burgers, not just the Big Mac, even just the plain old hamburgers. They're going to revamp those as well. But as far as the Big Mac is concerned, all of the buns are getting a revamp, and then the onions are getting added directly onto the burger while it's still hot on the grill to impart more flavor into the burger. Big Macs are getting extra Big Mac sauce. I got to tell you, that's the one thing. The Big Mac sauce it's Thousand Island dressing, right? Isn't that what the Big Mac sauce is?
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah. Leo, you know the answer to this. Is Leo in there?
Gates.
Oh, he's busy doing other stuff. That's okay. So they're going to add extra Mac sauce and a fragrant, this is McDonald's word, a fragrant new bun, saying that this will be like a messy pub burger instead of your run-of-the-mill drive-through burger. So it's going to be sloppier to eat. You're going to get more of that goo over your hands, which is not necessarily my favorite thing about the Big Mac. In fact, whenever they give you the Big Mac in that box, and you're like, how do I get it out of the box without getting this stuff all over my hands? I had to edit my words there. Without getting this McDonald's Big Mac sauce all over my hands, how exactly do I do that? So on the other end of the spectrum, Budweiser now is still trying to damage control with the Dylan Mulvaney trans influencer, the TikTok trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney fiasco from Budweiser that took some $6 billion off their market capitalization. So Budweiser quickly released a very American commercial over the weekend. There aren't as many words here as I would like for a radio program, but imagine the imagery as a large Clydesdale running in front of various landmarks in various American cities. But this is a very pro-American commercial from Anheuser-Busch.
Let me tell you a story about a beer rooted in the heart of America, found in a community where a handshake is a sure contract, brewed for those who found opportunity in challenge and hope in tomorrow, raised by generations, willing to sip, share, risk, remember. This is a story bigger than beer. This is the story of the American spirit.
You know, and that would be a really cool ad if not for the recent memory of that boy pretending to be a girl, Dylan Mulvaney, in those other promotional videos from the Mulvaney TikTok account. So that, you know, it's hard to take that terribly seriously because Budweiser at this point is all over the place. And if I'm being honest, it's not like I'm going to boycott Budweiser. I haven't had a Budweiser, and again, if I'm being honest, probably since high school. Not that I drank beer in high school at all, but that was probably the last time I had a Budweiser.